G'day, this is the Adelaide Old Fart, and this is the second part of my series on installing a sidecar to my Himalayan. Well, in this episode I'm looking at the rear spring. A sidecar puts a fair bit of force through the back end of the bike, and the front end for that matter, and you need to beef up the suspension. Now, there are a number of ways of doing this. You can give heaps of money to someone like YSS and buy a new shock absorber and spring. You can give rather less money to a spring manufacturer and have an upgraded spring made and install that over your existing shock absorber. The trouble with those two is that not many chairs have been fitted to a Himalayan, and no one really knows what I'm going to need. It's been suggested I should beef it up by 25%, but who knows? People are also riding these things without beefing up the suspension. So I've gone for a cheap bodgy fix. It's a bandaid solution, but there we go. I'm a big bloke, so I already ride the bike with the preload setting on number 6 out of 7. And what I've done is I've fitted spacers under the bottom of the spring, and wound, which has allowed me to dial the preload all the way back to number 1, which means I can ride it as a solo and hopefully beef it up for when the sidecar's on. And after 6 months or so riding around towing the sidecar, we'll work out exactly what I need, and I'll be able to go to a spring maker and say, this is what I want. Now, you can see the spring just in there. And if we get right down, you may be able to, I won't going to stick my fingers in there because the exhaust is hot. You may be able to make out the spacer. Actually, it's 3 spacers. I just bought some industrial washers. Right, so how do I get the shock absorber out, you may ask? Well, it's simple. You undo the bolt at the bottom, undo the top bolt at the top, and out it comes. However, to get at the bolt at the top, you need to remove the tank, or remove the seats first, remove the tank. You need to remove the side cover and the side cover on that side. You then remove the battery. You then go around the other side, remove the air filter. You remove the brace that holds the airbox and battery box are all in one unit. So you remove that. You slide, undo the worm clamp that holds the battery box to the, well, actually the airbox to the carburetor, and slide the whole thing back about 1.5 inches. And in the process of doing all this, you've got to unplug about a gazillion electrical connectors. It took a mate and me a good part of a couple of hours to do it. It's not a hard job, it's actually quite easy, there's just lots of it. Then there was the fun and games of getting the spring out. A number of ways on YouTube showing you how to do it. You can use ratchet straps, which we tried and failed. You can use a spring compressor, which we tried and failed because we didn't have the right one. So I jumped in the car and drove for 10-15 minutes to a spring specialist shop, and they took it out, fitted the spacers, put it back together again, and charged me $22. So next time I work on a spring, and anyone else considering this, don't risk damage to yourself. Just take it to a spring specialist, motorcycle spring specialist. It's a 5-minute job, they don't charge much. And then of course I had to put everything back together again. Okay, we'll now move to the video with hopefully a few bits and pieces of the work involved, and there's a ride wrap up after it. Okay. Having removed the battery and the side of the air cleaner and the internal rear mudguard, and unplugged about 1,000 electrical connections and disconnected it from the carby, we can now remove the battery box and air box, all of which seems to be in one piece, and that should allow us to get at the top of the shock absorber. And in fact, we don't have to remove it, we've only got to push it backwards slightly. Isn't that nice? Yeah, that's just sitting on it. Perfect. Blind man would be pleased to see it. Yep. Right, do it. Okay, now we've got everything out of the way. Here's our shock absorber in there. Here's our shock absorber, the top of it. That's the nut we're trying to undo. You can see the shocker down there.
Round all the way off, that spring's still compressed right up.
Yep. Doesn't look good, does it? So there's the spring. We've just removed or turned all the preload down. We've got a spring compressor, which we hope will compress the spring and hold it safely. And then we get to pull collars and things. Bottom end of your bolts catching.
Yeah.
Let's take the tension.
As it goes, we're going to spin around there.
It wants to.
Yeah, it's going to fly straight out again.
We then tried the ratchet strap method, but it quickly became obvious that with this shock absorber and those ratchet straps, the forces were too great, and we were going to wind up hurting ourselves. So we gave up. I had it to local suspension people who had the spacers fitted. Those are the spacers there, 3 big washers. That gives me 9mm of preload, with the preload ring set back on 1. It'll be similar to what it was before. Maximum preload. It's just ready to go back on the bike. And there's not a lot of the bike left. Right, now that I've had a chance to ride it for a bit, I guess I should give some sort of rundown on how the suspension feels with its upgrade. I'm a big bloke, and prior to the changes I used to ride it with the preload set at around notch 6, which is a fair way up. I've put in 9mm spacer and been able to bring the preload all the way back to notch 1. At that, I haven't done a sag test, I should tell you. This is all seat of the pants stuff. At that, she feels firm and steady. I'm not bouncing or anything, so it's certainly not over firm at the back. In fact, it feels quite nicely balanced with the front end. Some people complain of a soft front end. I haven't had that trouble with this one. So it actually feels really good to ride. It feels better to ride than it did before. And of course, once I whack the sidecar on, it'll be getting more force through the back, and I've got room to dial it up. If I was doing this for a solo, I probably wouldn't put 9mm in the back. I'd probably only put 6. But that doesn't matter. Will repeat that this is a band-aid fix. If I was going to do it properly, I'd get a new spring made. But I don't really know what size and grade spring to get. So I'll ride it like this for a while, put about 6 months on it with the sidecar, and then decide what I'm going to do about it. And I apologise once again for the photography. Having the camera not turn on and turn itself off at odd times didn't help. And even when I used my phone to get good footage, I didn't get good footage because I had my finger over the lens. Not the smartest. So I apologise for that. So this video is probably going to be a bit disjointed. And I hope you learnt something and I hope you enjoyed it. I'll catch you later for part 3.